Salute to the nation. It's breakdown time. Salute to the chat. Welcome to the edition of Positional Breakdown. I'm your host, Raider Ed. I got some guests pulling up later in the live. We are breaking down the offensive line, you guys. Shout out to everyone pulling up. We got Sean Johnson in the building. He says, salute Primos. Yes, BigMike and KaneTown are going to be on with me. They are going to be on later in the show. Just waiting for them to pull up. We got Raiderzilla in the building. Shout out to him. Shout out to Digital Perez making a fire intro. That intro is fire. Shout out to everyone, man. And if you guys haven't already, if you guys are pulling up for the first time, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like on the way in, and hit that bell if you have not been notified that we have gone live. Also, share the link around. I know a lot of people want to get their opinions and their thoughts on the offensive line. Also, guys, we are one subscriber away from 350, and then I will put us 50 subscribers away from 400. I know we can get there, so please hit that subscribe button. Also, share the link around. Also, please welcome the man, the myth, the legend, my man, BigMike Raider.
What's going on, bro? What's going on? Shout out to the chat. Shout out to you, bro. Happy Sunday. Hope the weekend was good, man.
It was. Went on our Bray Wyatt Raider brother to hop on.
Oh, okay.
Sean Johnson said, I'll top it real quick, but pads go on this week. And you know what? We're going to talk about that real quick. BigMike, I wanted to get your thoughts, and then I'll get my thoughts. Bro, football's back, bro. Like, when pads come on, that is when the football season is in the air. Preseason is around the corner. Like, this is where we're excited as fans, but we're really going to see who's the man amongst boys when it comes to our team. And what better way to talk about like a unit than the offensive line, because I think a lot of us was waiting for those passes to come on when it came to offensive line versus defensive line. And we got Moody that is getting high. We got McClendon Kurt, I believe it's McClendon. I gotta go back into my notes. That is getting a lot of hype also. And then Sean Johnson said another guy that we need to keep an eye on is Dalton Wagner, another name that we need to keep a name out for. But yeah, real quick, give us your thoughts about pads coming on. What are you looking forward to now that the pads are coming on this week?
For pads, man, you definitely want to value those 1-versus-1s. You know, the defensive line going against the O-line. I really want to see what a guy like Thayer Munford, particularly just because he's in his second year. I want to see him kind of do a one-on-one versus like a Adam Plant Jr. to see kind of where Adam Plant kind of stands and kind of where he stands as well. So, you know, something like that, you know. So
yeah,
that's kind of what I'm looking for. As far as like depth goes, you definitely want to see McClendon Curtis kind of go against those interior linemen, see where he stands. Now, there was some quick film that they showed from him in camp where he showed like great footwork. And, you know, there's no pads on. He's not hitting anybody, but he's showing good fundamentals where he's, you know, using great footwork and moving laterally very well for a guy who's 6'6" and about 320 pounds. That's impressive. Yeah. So I'm excited for that. To those one-on-one, 1-versus-1s, 2-versus-2s, those kind of like competition one-on-one drills. That's kind of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm looking for too, because a lot of Raider Nation and a lot of the media is really underestimating this offensive line unit. Let's be honest, this offensive line unit has been getting a lot of hate going into like coming out of last year when it really doesn't make any sense. They finished, I believe, top 11 out of the rankings, and they had a running back that they had led the league in rushing yards You got to give the offensive line credit for that. Shout out to Sean Johnson. He gave me like the stats on Josh Jacobs. And Jacobs was first among running backs in PFF grade, 91.6, rushing yards, 1,653, first down runs, 94, and then the missed tackles, forced on runs was 90. That's him. But I really want to talk about the first down runs and then, of course, his rushing yards. That's all Josh Jacobs, but let's get credit to this offensive line. Do you think the offensive line definitely has to – I mean, they definitely got to get credit, right? Like for allowing Josh Jacobs to be the number one back in the league, right?
Yeah, you definitely can't deliver. You can't have an elite season like Josh Jacobs did without having an offensive line that did their job. Particularly that interior offensive line, with Andre James, Alex Bars, who didn't really have a great season, but he's shown glimpses of being serviceable. And then on the other side, Dylan Parham, who he showed a lot of promise, even though he had a little shaky first year, but showed a lot of promise nonetheless, right? So that interior line really did their job. And then the tackles, of course, you kind of look for them to kind of not just block forward, just make big blocks on the offensive on the running game, but protecting the quarterback as well. So that's kind of what you're looking for.
Yeah, and we're waiting on KaneTown real quick. Digital, I know he needs to change his name to Sleepy Town. I sent him the link, so hopefully he pulls up in a bit. But again, another interesting graphic here. It was the 2023 pass protection expectations for the all 32 NFL teams. The Raiders finished in the top 10, being number 10 in pass protection as a 91% win rate. I see that, and I think this also has to go into the game plan that Josh McDaniels runs. Yep. I think with Jimmy Garoppolo being back there, and what type of guy he is, he's kind of an injury-prone type of quarterback. Josh McDaniels is going to drop a lot of plays that's going to help the quarterback out. A lot of quick slants, a lot of screens, a lot of ball screens. But I do believe that even on these deep passes, we're going to have an offensive line that's going to protect. You got Colton Miller and Dylan Parham. We're going to talk about them solidifying that left side, just locking down that left side. And I feel like for years, the Raiders have always known how to lock down the left side. Of course, our question marks is at right side. Who's going to be the right guard? We know Luminor might go to the right tackle, or he might shift to the right guard, given maybe Haran plays that right tackle position, or Thayer Mumford plays that right tackle position. There's a lot of question marks on that right side. But first, I want to dive into this left side. Let's talk about Colton Miller and Dylan Parham. We're not going to talk about them as solos because I feel like we know what they could do by their own self. But together, I mean, you got Dylan Parham who's going to go against guys like Jones from freaking KC. I always forget his first name. All I think is Jones 95, and it's like nightmares in my head. He creates chaos. But you got guys that's who I'm watching. I'm like Dylan Parham and Andre James. You guys are gonna go against him. For Dylan Parham, I want to play something really quick. He talked about how he got sick during the Texans game, and it kind of dropped his weight down a bit, and then he put back the weight. This is what Dylan Parham had to say at the presser today. I don't know if you guys – let me know if you guys can hear it.
No.
It's probably I'm playing it from my laptop. Let me play it from my phone instead because technology is tripping. Real quick, I'll have you – while I find this, Big Mike, expectations for Dylan Parham real quick. He bulked up back to 315 pounds. He's likely going to be in the left guard position. And thank you, Cesar Veer. Yeah, Chris Jones. I don't know why I'm going old. I'm going old and thinking Deacon Jones. I'm like, what am I doing?
Damn, bro.
Yeah, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, I know that ain't right. But yeah, Chris Jones. But yeah, what is your expectations for Dylan Parham? Had a really decent rookie year. He showed flashes, showed struggles, but he was a rookie. But now going into his second year, what is your expectations for a guy like Dylan Parham?
I think Dylan Parham can really make a kind of have one of those breakout seasons where he's kind of flirting with Pro Bowl type season, especially if Josh McDaniels dials up the run game again this year, whether it may be a running back by committee or Josh Jacobs is the bell cow when he does return, if he returns. He could have that breakout season. Second year, he kind of knows the ins and outs of the league now. He has a full training camp. There's no learning curve. He's coming back stronger than ever. He gained that weight that he lost from being sick. He was down to like 285 or something like that. And now he's up to about 315, 320, which is perfect for a guard. And just coming back with that power, I expect him to kind of continue kind of where he left off, because he did have some glimpses of solid play in his first year, but then come back in that second year and really make some noise.
Yeah, I'm excited for Dylan Parham. This is what he had to say when he got sick. This is what he had to say at the presser.
Earlier this week, they said they're going to seem to be stronger and bigger coming out of the offseason. I guess first question is, how much are you up to now weight-wise, and why did you feel like it was an emphasis for you to focus on that offseason?
So I've gotten around the 315-ish range this season. So last year, around week 7-ish, I came down with a really bad cold. And I wasn't eating, I wasn't really getting good rest. And I was so sick, I ran a fever like 102 before that Texans game. And I literally dropped maybe 12 pounds within 3 days. And so I got pretty sick early on. So this past offseason, I just wanted to get back to feeling like myself. And so for me, I was I played really well. And Chargers week was when I was 315-ish. So I was okay, that's where I want to get back to. And then strength-wise, just focusing on trying to build my base a little bit more, and then trying to even my upper body with that as well.
I like what he pointed out there is he's not just focusing on weight, he's focusing on strength too. That's what excites me. He's focusing on strength and then his footwork. I think when there was times in that KC game when he got beat by Chris Jones a lot in the interior, his footwork, he was getting beat on his footwork. He was getting beat off balance and then just strength. He was getting pushed back right into Derek Carr's lap. I hear that from a second-year guy, and that excites me. And that excites me that I feel like that's who he's trying to chase. Not really chase, but he's Chris Jones, you're not going to get me next year. That's what I'm making sure. But let's talk about our left tackle, Colton Miller. I feel like coming out of his rookie year, a lot of questions flew up in the air that, John Gruden reached on a left tackle, that Colton Miller is not going to be he's a speed and agility left tackle. He's very versatile, which we know Carmen Bacello loves versatile offensive line players. But for Colton Miller going into, I believe it's year 6 for him, I believe. It's either year 6 or year, let me see, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2020. Yeah, year 6. Yep. He's going into year 6 or 7. He's basically the vet on that offensive line. Him and Illuminor, those tackles. What could Colton Miller do for a guy like Dylan Parham? Not just being that veteran presence, but also let's talk about he has to block Jimmy Garoppolo's blind side. I feel like if anyone has the most important job, it is Colton Miller. You got to keep our guy up straight, especially from his blind side, because any hit he takes is going to bring the breath out of Raider Nation. So first question is, what does Colton Miller's veteran presence bring for Dylan Parham going into year 2?
Simply put, man, continuity. You're looking for continuity on that left side, especially in the second year under the same system. If you want to get more into technical terms, you want to run the power on that left side, off the tackle in between the guard and the tackle. Then you have a lot of combo blocking between the two, the guard or even tackle, depending on what kind of play you have. You have them going to the second level, taking out linebackers, even DBs. Dylan Parham, his athleticism, he could be used to pull on counter plays and things like that, which we didn't really see much of last year. Screen plays, you want to see him downfield making plays this year, and having a Colton Miller kind of helps him with that kind of that process, being that seasoned vet and kind of knowing the ins and outs and knowing a defense. Because let's just be honest, this is what people don't really talk about, the fact that there you go, check it out.
I want to put this up real quick, guys. If you guys haven't, this is Big Mike's article on planetraiders.com. So I put the link down in the chat. We're gonna talk about this real quick, Big Mike. But yeah, go ahead with your finishing.
Before I continue, that was from Wasted Talent. He dropped that one. Dylan Parham. I also have
Severe's. That's why. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's from Wasted Talent.
Well,
Shout out to Wasted.
All right.
And but I did speak a little bit about Dylan Parham on a previous article a couple months back. It was like a bold takes, like a top 5 like breakout players.
I got your article. That's my bad, boy.
But you in those kind of situations, misconception, right? People don't really talk about it enough, is that the best people who know the defense is the offensive lineman. They know the defense better than anything, better than just as good as quarterbacks do, to be honest with you. And that's one thing people don't really talk about. And not Dylan Parham, but Colton Miller, being his 6th year in the league, you could say he's an expert at this point on reading defenses and things like that. He can bring that kind of expertise and that kind of wisdom to Dylan Parham. Hey, this is what I'm seeing right now before, and hopefully, you're seeing the same thing, and kind of bring that to him. So that's kind of what Colton Miller is bringing to Dylan Parham.
Yeah, I love that Colton Miller has played with that chip on his shoulder, and he's basically shut up every critic that has came his way. Even I had questions. I'm like, could Colton Miller really be that left tackle? Could he replace, Donald Penn that we had at the left tackle position? Donald Penn really was a good left tackle for us coming from free agency from Tampa Bay. But we needed a young buck, and building that offensive line, that's where it starts with building a top offense. You got to build through the trenches first, and then you work your way out. I think my expectations for Colton Miller and Dylan Parham is they could be one of the probably top 10, maybe top 5 duos in the league. I'm not hyping them up. Based off of last season, I didn't see no problems with that left side. I didn't, yes, there was a lot of hiccups with Dylan Parham. But I think he can only get better, and he's bulked up not only just weight wise, but strength wise. And he's noticing that he's going back watching film of last year and really focusing on his footwork, focusing on using more of his hands rather than just pure strength. And Colton Miller's just gonna guide this young pup near him. He's like having a vet of his caliber, and like you say, he's probably one of the most smartest left tackles, or could be the smartest left tackle in conversation of who's the top smartest. Colton Miller could be up there, and then to have that paired as coming from Dylan Parham, I think this can do wonders for that left side. I wanted to then go to our center, who Sean Johnson was hitting me up through the whole offseason and getting me caught up with Andre James, and our center position has me a little bit worried here. Sean Johnson brought up to me that Andre James is a little underweight for a center, and I believe he was at 280. Yeah, he's at 276 pounds for a center.
Yeah, he's
276 pounds, and he stands at 6'4", tall, but 276 pounds. That has me worried.
That's a fullback almost. Yeah. Right? That's you don't want that. You definitely don't want that, man.
You could put Jakob Johnson at center, bro, and there you go.
Yeah, seriously, man, seriously. Without jumping the gun, right? Yeah. I would say that this might be a top 10 just overall, just offensive line, right? On that left side. We're talking particularly left side. That Colton Miller and Dylan Parham being that 1-2 punch on the left side, that might be top 10. But PFF already ranked Colton Miller and Jermaine Illuminor on that on our tackles, a top 10 tackle duo. So, if they go status quo, top 10 right there, and then Dylan Parham makes a big jump on that left side along with Colton Miller, we got something special especially if we can get that right guard spot sealed up.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to go into the chat. We know this show is nothing without the chat, nothing without the Raider Nation. Shout out to Van City. He says, Primos, busy with the family day, but just wanted to pop in and show some love like I always do. Keep grinding, I believe that's a buck. I can't tell. These emojis on StreamYard are not the greatest. But definitely gonna be grinding, man. We got a lot to talk about. Training camp, Pat. When Pat's come on, I'm definitely gonna be coming on. Sean Johnson says Colton Willard, his height and weight is 6'9", 328 pounds. That's a mammoth on the left tackle position.
No doubt.
And then Jermaine Illuminor, he's 6'4", 331 pounds. And let's highlight Jermaine. I know we're talking about the center real quick.
Yep.
But let's highlight Jermaine Illuminor real quick, because this is a guy coming into the season with a lot of criticism based off last season. Dealt with a lot of penalties. I believe he was top 5 in penalties when it's ranked with right tackles.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what I love, he knows he made that mistake. He tweeted, he's like, he's going to fix those penalties. He's going to clean the penalties up. But let's not forget, minus the penalties, Jermaine Illuminor really did hold his own in the right tackle position. Do you think that is the only thing he has to clean up, Big Mike? Is it the penalties, or is it something else going into the 2023 season that he may need to work on?
I think it's just the penalties. And I think he will clean that up. He expressed that a lot this offseason, that he wants to clean up the penalties. He owes Raider Nation and things like that. He definitely was harder on himself than the rest of us were. I mean, and believe it or not, and I think he's bringing that chip on his shoulder, to the season. Now, one thing people don't want to talk about, a lot of people really focus in on those penalties, which were very untimely, particularly the one against the Seahawks in that fourth quarter, right? That set us back 5 yards. We ended up scoring anyway, but that could have been a penalty that cost the game. However, he gave up 2 sacks at the beginning of the season, and I think it was like the first 2 games of the season gave up 2 sacks. The final 15 games, he only gave up 1. So, this is a guy who really found his stride with that team. And part of that, giving up the sacks at the beginning, was because he was kind of going back and forth, sharing reps with Thayer Munford on that left side, on that right side. So, it's going to be interesting to see if he can carry that momentum on this year and bring that level of great play on that right tackle position, because he played great for the most part.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the season, for the majority of the season, he did. So, and a lot of people don't really kind of give him his flowers for that.
Yeah. And
also, his contract's like $3 million or something. Like he's a steal. Like he's a bargain for a tackle who plays, as efficiently as he does it.
And he wants to be here.
Yeah, and he wants to be here. So I think just overall pound for pound is probably the best contract that we have on the team so far right now at this moment. So I'm just excited for him to see what he brings to the table and bring that momentum of what he did last year.
Yeah, man. Salute to Severe. He says the Raiders website has Andre James at 300 pounds. I'm going to double check that just to make sure I'm correct. But I mean, I trust you, Severe. I trust Severe. So yeah, I mean, if he is up to 300 pounds, then that's good. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I checked other stats and he was at 276, but hopefully, Raider site's updated to 300.
Yeah, usually you want your center to be between, you don't want him too heavy, right? But you want him to be nimble. Even 295 is a good weight. I've seen centers in the league around the high 200s. So, that's good. That's a good weight. 300 is perfect.
Yeah. And then let's go over to our right guard position. Now we have Netane Moody. We have a lot of, and also I want to point this out, guys. We have a lot of returning players. So the only new players, this is from the Raiders website. We have McClendon Curtis, Justin Murray, Greg Van Roten, and Dalton Wagner. Those are the only new players that are being added to this offensive line. Your returning players are Alex Bars, Jermaine Illuminor, Grasu, Gurman, Justin Huron, Andre James, Jordan Meredith, Colton Miller, Thayer Munford, Netane Moody, and Dylan Parham and Brandon Parker. Now, Netane Moody is a guy that I like to highlight because Netane Moody is a guy that most people believe that he could get that right guard position. Again, last season we had right guard question marks, a lot of injuries to the offensive line. But Natane Moody is, I'll be honest, a guy that I had to do a lot of research on because I did not. When I first heard him, it was on Graph Show. And I was like, who the heck is this Moody guy? Like, who is this Moody guy?
Right.
So I started doing, my experience, my research on him. He's 6'3", 370 pounds. He is 24 years old, and he comes out of Fresno State. He had 4 years of NFL experience. He was selected by the Denver Broncos in the 6th round of the 2020 NFL draft, and then he was waived by the Broncos, and then he was basically just signing to practice squads. And then Las Vegas signed him from the Broncos practice squad. Now, to Natane Moody, what is some things that you've seen, Big Mike, that people are giving them that right, not giving it to him, but they're hyping like, hey, he could be that right guard for the 2023 season. What are you seeing out of Natane Moody?
I think it's because he's a returning guy. That's really what it comes down to. Him and Bars. You look at those two guys like these are 2 returning guys that can get the job done. They've shown that they can do so. But you know what? Like, I would love to see a homegrown guy come in and take the spot. Raiderzilla, shout out to you. I would say, Munford, he at Ohio State, he played a little bit of guard, but he was drafted as a tackle. But if he's showing that he should be on the field for whatever reason, you can go ahead and bump him over to a guard. Or, you got a Jermaine Illuminor who's, he also has that versatility to go play guard too. Throw Munford over at the tackle position, which isn't probably the what we want.
Yeah.
That's not the ideal.
At guard and Mumford at tackle.
Yeah.
I mean, still probably won't want that, but if that's what you're going for, then that's what you're doing.
Right. And McClendon Curtis, a guy like McClendon Curtis, that's somebody I would like to see take over this spot and be that starting right guard. It's a homegrown guy. He overcame the odds. The odds were stacked against him, UDFA, even though he was projected to be a 4th or 5th round pick. And he comes in and knocks people's heads off during camp, one-on-ones versus the 49ers and joint practices. Then you can see him at that right guard position. I think that's that's the ideal situation, having him kind of earn a spot and be in that right guard, because that tells me that over the 3-4 people that are going for that right guard position, he emerged from there, meaning that there was a lot of competition. So he's getting sharp and he's bringing his A game. So it's not a kind of out of a default, let's put this guy in here. It's because he definitely earned the spot and that he's skilled enough to be at that position. So another guy we got to look forward to is Van Roten. We picked him up from the Jets. He has a lot of experience with starting as well. I had his numbers up from the Jets, but my dog just knocked the power off of here. So, but Van Roten is a guy that we need to look for to kind of come in and be that right guard guy too. So, it's going to be a lot of competition at that right guard position, and whoever emerges, they're going to absolutely deserve it.
And I believe it's that iron sharpens. I mean, let's look real quick. I know this is probably going off, but look at the defense that they may be going up to in training camp. You got, of course, Max Crosby. You got Chandler Jones, guys like them. Those are probably likely the tackles. Probably Luminor is going to be taking on them. Miller. For like the right guards, you got Bars, you got Van Roten, you got Moody. They're probably going to go against our D tackles like Tillery, Jordan Willis, or John Jenkins, Kyle Pecco, Adam Butler, Bilal Nichols, and then even Adam, like you said, Adam Plant, because I'm hearing a lot of things, good things about Adam Plant. Yeah, he's a DE, but the defensive line, they're going to shift them around. The way Patrick Graham likes to move that defensive line around, the offensive line, I think what's great is that I don't want to hype up this defensive line, but they can be very, very scary going into the season. I know we're talking about offensive line. The reason why I bring up the defensive line is this offensive line is not going to have an easy task when it comes to one-on-ones or 2-on-2s in the training camp. They're going to have to earn, like you said, for guys like Moody, for guys like Van Roten, for guys like McClendon Curtis, they're going to have to earn that spot at the guard position, whether it's for that right guard, because left guard, let's be honest, it's a lock with Parham. Left tackle is a lock, of course, with Miller. Right tackle, probably some question marks. But so far, it's looking like Illuminor is going to be there.
Yep.
And, of course, Andre James is going to be at center. That real question mark is the right guard. And you got probably 5 guys that want that right guard starting job.
Yep.
So when you see like just training camp overall, you got the 1v1s, the 2v2s. Who are you highlighting? Like what 1v1 are you highlighting? Like who against who do you want to see? And that tells you, yeah, this may be an edge for our right guard, or it can possibly hurt them.
I definitely want to see your right guard go against a 3 technique or a 1 technique, particularly Bilal Nichols. Now, Bilal Nichols is coming back from that meniscus injury he played through this last season. He didn't play great, but there's reports out there saying that he's good to go. And what you want to see in one-on-ones is you want to see natural battles that you would actually see in a football game for the most part, right? Yeah. You want to see those defensive tackles going against those interior linemen like guards and centers. So I would love to see our best defensive tackle at this point, which is probably a Bilal Nichols. Maybe it is a Byron Young, depending on, what emerges from camp.
Yeah.
But, a Bilal Nichols versus whoever is at that right guard position and whoever kind of fares out the best, that you kind of put that edge, right? You kind of get the, check. You won that battle, so that's an edge for you when it's time for us to decide who's going to be that starter. So, Bilal Nichols going against whoever's going for that starting right guard position is kind of what I'm looking for.
I like that. I'm definitely going to be highlighting that. Like, there's a lot, like training camp. It's fun because, of course, it's practice. Can't really, really scout these guys when it comes to practice. But that's why I'm excited for the preseason games. When it comes to the preseason games, one offensive line men that you are highlighting, that you are going to watch throughout all preseason. Like, yeah, training camp's fun, but game time is different. You're going against other guys that are trying to make their own respective teams. They got chip on their shoulders, and they're going to play. A lot of people say, oh, they're playing against second, third stringers. Like, let's remember, these guys are trying to fight for a job. So if anything, they're going to be playing like first stringers. They're going to be playing harder. So who are you eyeing on the offensive line for preseason?
Whoever's playing that right guard. To be honest. Hey, whoever's playing that right guard. Also, you also got to look at who's getting more reps at the moment. That will kind of tell you who's depending on like what game it is, right? The first game versus the 49ers, you're going to see kind of who they want to put at that spot, depending on who gets the most reps, right?
Yeah.
Well, another thing that we got to look for is we got to pay attention to those joint practices, because the joint practices are arguably more important than the actual preseason game. Now, in joint practices, you're getting ones versus ones.
Yeah.
You're getting best on defense and in offense. So, whoever's that, what's the defensive tackle for the 49ers? I can't think of his name, but a defensive tackle versus on the 49ers versus, somebody at right guard going for that starting spot. Now, if somebody gets cooked, then you're like, all right, maybe he's not ready to start. Like if a McClendon Curtis, he gets cooked by, is it Hargrave? No, that's not Hargrave.
Oh no, they do got Hargraves though on the defensive line though. Let me see. I'm checking their roster right now because we have a joint practice with them, and I think the Rams, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they got Kinlaw. They got Javon Kinlaw as a D tackle.
Yep.
Who else on the line? They got Farrell. They got Javon Hargrave.
Yeah.
I think Hargraves is there. Of course, they got Nick Bosa, Robert Beal Jr., Alex Barrett, Eric Armstead.
I was thinking about Armstead.
Yeah,
Armstead. And Armstead,
Armstead is a dog.
Yeah, so you got an Armstead versus a McClendon Curtis, or an Armstead versus a Muti, to see kind of how they fare against each other if they do match up against each other. And we'll see it on Twitter. You know, it'll get announced. So and so went against this person. He did well in these reps. You know, or he didn't do well in these reps. Those kind of things like that. So those are the things that we really have to start looking for in the next couple of weeks when they start doing those one-on-one drills and practices and stuff. So and kind of how like live action game time stuff in practice. How does the offensive line as a whole kind of fare versus that defensive line? Because that's one of the best of the best. As much as we hate the 49ers, that's one of the best front four, even depth-wise, best defensive lineman core in the league. So we got to watch carefully with that, but particularly at that right guard position, their ones versus our ones is exactly what we need to be looking for.
Yeah, and man, well said. I think that, like you said, that's why joint practices are very important. I want to check our joint practices. I know we got the Niners, and like you said, the Niners are a top defensive line. So what best way to go have a joint practice with any other team than the top defense in the NFL, especially a top defensive line, to really see where this offensive line is at. I wanted to then ask you, I wanted to ask this question to the chat because Sean Johnson's bringing it up. Who's getting cut from this offensive line? Sean Johnson says his cuts is Alex Bars, Vitaly Gurman, Grasu, Justin Herron, Murray, and then Jordan Meredith and Brandon Parker, which I believe that's going to leave. Let me bring it up. That's going to leave 1, 2, 3, or actually 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 offensive linemen, which I believe that's about right going into the season. Yeah, that's your standard. And basically, who makes the team is your starters, of course. And then you got Mumford, you got Moody, you got Parham. That, of course, they're going to make it. You got Andre James, Jermaine Illuminor, and then he says McClendon Curtis is going to make it. I think, Sean, you told me you wanted Dalton Wagner either if he's not going to be on the roster to be on the practice squad. Do you agree with this cuts, or do you think there's going to be different names on here, Big Mike?
I think somehow Brandon Parker is going to still stick around, and I think because of his versatility. Now, that's one thing that Josh McDaniels likes for his offensive linemen, and you'll see it throughout preseason that guys are going to be moved around a lot, playing different positions that they might not usually play, particularly play in the regular season. We saw this last preseason where we saw Brandon Parker at left tackle, and then he got moved over to right tackle. So you're going to see a lot of that. And I think what Brandon Parker brings to the table that a lot of the guys on our team don't bring is that versatility, that swing role that he does play, where he can play virtually any position on the field except for the center, right? So he brings that to the table. I'm not a big Parker fan, but he does bring that, and I do understand that they do value that. So I think for that reason, he's going to still be on this team.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, Carmen Brasil loves versatility, offensive linemen, and especially, like you said, the swings, because there's going to be a lot of times they're going to be swinging out, especially those tackles. But when you got Colton Miller out there, and like you said, you got Brandon Parker out there, those are probably your two best swing tackles right there. Like, I love Colton for that, especially the swing. Now, Brandon Parker, I think what's hurt him is injuries. And also, he can't protect to save his life, when it comes to the passing. But run support, I mean, he's been one of the top, maybe not one of the top tackles, but he shows he can get it done. Now, this is related to the Josh Jacobs situation. More, can this offensive line do it again? Not just, let's say Josh Jacobs doesn't come back. Can this offensive line open holes up for guys like Zamir White, for these backups? Can they do the same thing they did for Josh Jacobs? I'm gonna say yes, because it's the offensive line. It's not, it's the same guys basically. It's all come down to, can Zamir White see and not run into them? But what's your answer, man? Is having a different back there gonna matter with this offensive line?
So to give a little bit more of a detailed answer, right? Last year the Raiders were about around the middle of the pack as far as a rushing attack goes as a team, even though that Josh Jacobs did have a 1,600-yard season. But as a squad, I think we didn't even break 2,000 yards as a squad as far as rushing goes. So if, say we do have Josh Jacobs back, right? Say he comes back, he's going to have a drop in production. Another article that I just did about Josh Jacobs and his projected production on Planet Raiders. I dropped it last week. You can kind of look at my prediction on that. But what you need to have is more of a running back by committee to kind of step up in those opportunities and capitalize on their reps. And I think because of Zamir White getting more reps during this camp, he's getting a lot more opportunities. He's getting that rhythm. He's going to be more confident running the ball. He's under the same system. And there's nothing better than having a running back who has that rhythm, right? We saw with Josh Jacobs a couple years ago where he wasn't getting many carries, but once he started cooking, once he started getting to a rhythm, he's unstoppable. And I think a lot of running backs do get that kind of same kind of zone when they get the ball enough times. They kind of get into a zone and they start running better. So that leaves me hope for a guy like Zamir White. As far as this offensive line goes, as far as that goes, I think that we can continue. But that doesn't mean that we're going to be like a top rushing attack. I think we're still going to be somewhat in the middle of the pack. Hopefully we do a little bit better as a running back unit as far as getting those rushing yards together. But we're going to see more of a balanced attack. I think that we're going to see more like what they're favored with that system, under that system that Josh McDaniels runs. He wants to run about a 55-45% ratio in favor of the pass. So I see them kind of going back to that kind of ratio, passing the ball a little bit more, distributing it to different people, because we got the proper quarterback to do it, knows the system and things like that. You're going to see less carries than we had last year, and it's going to be distributed more. So I think about the same, long story short, about the same production as far as the offensive line goes. But it just all matters on that offense, that running back room kind of coming together collectively and making things happen.
I like this question from Sean Johnson, and thank you, Big Mike, for that detailed answer, man. Hey, Mike's all yours, man. Sean Johnson says, I know this isn't an O-line question, but since they help the O-line, you see us going with 3 tight ends or possibly 4. I see us going with 3. Who's the 3? I mean, I know Hooper and Mayer is probably your 2 locks. That's my 2 locks. With Mayer being the number 1. That 3rd is where I'm questioning. I don't know if it's going to be Horsted or it's going to be Howard. I think we're carrying 3. What are you seeing, Big Mike?
I could see 4, to be honest, but realistically 3, but I could see 4 just because, the things that we run in the goal line, 32 personnel stuff, where you have 3 tight ends, even a fullback back there, kind of, using that power formation to kind of get the ball in the end zone. I can see more of that. And we kind of run a lot of 21 personnel. So for that reason, you might want to have a couple of backups just in case, things go wrong, right? You kind of want to have that blocking tight end and you want to have that receiving tight end. And I think that because of that, you have 2 different types of tight ends. You want to back up for those 2 different types, right?
Yeah.
Austin Hooper's more of a receiving tight end, and Michael Mayer does a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
So the backups will kind of have to mirror almost what they do, right? You will want another receiving tight end and another one that can kind of block a little bit in favor of blocking. So is that a Horsted? Is that a OJ Howard? Kind of both making the squad? That remains to be seen. If I had to pick 3, I think OJ Howard's an odd man out, to be honest with you. I think he might not be a particular fit for this team. Let him go and find, somewhere, elsewhere to make things happen. But I can see a possibility of 4.
Yeah. Shout out to Sean Johnson for that question. Shout out to 808 Raider. He says red zone efficiency has to be the main focus this season.
Oh yeah.
And let's talk about the red zone efficiency. Yeah, I know we knocked on Derek Carr a lot, but he got sacked a couple of times too in the red zone. In total, the Raiders allowed 35 sacks in 2022. Not a whole lot of sacks if you really then put it out for compared to the rest of the NFL. That's not really terrible. A lot. Like that's not something I look at. It's like, hey, I'm worried about this offensive line going into 2023, and that's why I question Raider Nation for being worried about this offensive line. Because when we signed Jimmy G, all I was hearing was, "Oh, the Niners got a better offensive line than us." That the Raiders' offensive line isn't that great. Our right guard, our right tackle isn't solidified. But then you see a stat like that, only 35 sacks that they were giving up as a unit. I would say, what is your prediction going into 2023? Are they going to give up more or less than 35 sacks? Big Mike.
I'll say that they're probably going to give up the least amount of sacks in the league. And the reason why I say that is because if you look back at it under Josh McDaniels, when he was with the Patriots, for all those years, Tom Brady stayed upright and clean for every game. And that's because he had him in you're throwing those short routes, a screen route, a lot of screen routes, a lot of slant routes, 3-step drops, and keeping that quarterback clean, keeping him upright, and kind of using his strengths to his advantage. Now, people, you got to remember, Tom Brady, he for a long time the argument was like, is he a system quarterback? I think he proved us wrong when he went to the Buccaneers after he left the Patriots. But for the longest time, it was like, he might not have the greatest arm, but he can master this system to a T, right? Which he did. But they thought he was limited to that. One thing about Jimmy G that we do know is that he knows this system, and he played arguably some of his best ball under this system, even for a limited time, right? He played well under the system with Josh McDaniel and the Patriots. So in saying that, I think that he's going to continue where he left off, those 3-step drops. We're not going to see him taking too many hits at all, and this offensive line is going to look actually better than what they actually are because of how the system is ran. I'm not saying that the offensive line is bad, but I'm thinking that this offensive line is going to look better stat-wise because of how they run offense, their offense, short 3-step drops, maybe occasionally a 5-step drop if they want to go, vertical, but it's going to be few and far in between. And you're going to rely more on the yards after the catch and keeping that quarterback upright.
Yeah. And that's where it come for me. Right when I heard that, I'm hearing that narrative pointed out there that this offensive line, got a lot of questions. The Niners offensive line was better than the Raiders keeping Jimmy Garoppolo upright. Well, I'm like, the Niners offensive line got 4 of their quarterbacks hurt. That they had to have Christian McCaffrey back there. Yeah. For the most part, they kept Derek Carr upright. Now, people will ask, well, why so many sacks? That's not a lot of sacks, like I said. But let's also talk about Derek Carr's game. His game is he holds on to the ball a little bit too long. When that time, like they always say, a quarterback has to have that clock in his head when it's time to get that ball out, whether it's to throw it away or to take off and run, or you got to find that open receiver. Yeah. I feel like he didn't have that clock in the back of his head because he would either run into his offensive line or he'll just get hit. And I've always said, as a quarterback, you got to help your offensive line out. What does that look like? That means you got to move the pocket. Like, these offensive line do not got eyes in the back of their heads. So you got to try to shit. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo, what I hope I see when it comes to joint practices, and then even when I watched some tape on him last year, he maneuvers the pocket probably not better than any, maybe because not like Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, not like the top, but he's up there where he maneuvers the pocket. He helps his offensive line out. If he's going to get rushed from the right, he's going to the left and he'll escape the pocket. Your offensive line looks better by you improvising or you setting them up with blocks also. Because if they're blocking to the left and you're rolling to the right, like their momentum's going to the left, and that's a free runner right to your face. You gotta try to maneuver the pocket. And that was one thing I didn't like from our former quarterback. I felt like the blame was going on the offensive line, but I feel like they were not getting the help that they deserve. Do you want to chime in on that, Big Mike? Is Jimmy Garoppolo going to help this offensive line out in regards to like setting up blocks, not really, taking too many quarterback hits, as you were saying, and taking any sacks that, it's going to, of course, go charge to them.
Well, one thing that's going to help him for sure is knowing the offense.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that Derek Carr, and there's no blame against him. This is, this is the offense wasn't, it didn't become second nature to him at any point of the season, right? So because of that learning curve and because of while you're playing, you're kind of hesitating because you're not, kind of reacting naturally to where you need to go with the ball. There's a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of him, instead of stepping up in the pocket, he's kind of running into the defenders a lot of the time in pass rushing situations and not knowing to where you find your hot route guy, find your third option or things like that. It wasn't second nature to him. Now with Jimmy G, the hopes is that he is going to be kind of locked in with that offense where he can, first, second, third read is first nature to him. And even while he's getting a little bit of pressure, he steps up a little bit and can still find that guy. That's kind of what we're going to see the difference between him and Derek Carr. Now, Derek Carr didn't really see too many sacks.
Yeah.
But what he did do was throw he threw a career high in interceptions.
Yeah.
So
back-to-back season.
Right, back-to-back season. So and that's between the ears at that point. That's a between the ears type of deal. And I think that Jimmy G is just kind of cool, calm, and collected in that pocket, steps up when he needs to, and knows where to go with the ball while under pressure. And that's a big difference than, our previous quarterback.
Yeah. We got off topic real quick. Sorry to the chat. Because we're going to talk about Andre James real quick. And we didn't really get too much into Andre James because a lot of people, and even me, I'm going into the season thinking he could be the weakest link. Depending how this offensive line shapes out, he could be the weakest link on this offensive line. But I'm not going to take anything away because I think he could be one of the smartest centers, picking up, what the quarterbacks went down. And I think, again, going back to who's running the system is Jimmy Garoppolo. Having a smart quarterback that knows the system, I think is going to do wonders for Andre James and picking up what the offense wants to run and then also picking up what defenses are going to show. And also him and Jimmy Garoppolo's communication, essentially, I think it's going to get better as the season goes on. Now, of course, we don't know. It's a question mark because it's just training camp. But I want to ask you, Big Mike, can Andre James, like how we said with Dylan Parham having a breakout season, we haven't really said Andre James is a top center in the league. We had it with Ronnie Hudson where it was like, man, he could be he's the best center in the league. He's easily top 5. We necessarily did not have that narrative or that conversation about Andre James. It's 2023 where Raider Nation starts having that conversation that Andre James is probably a top 5 center in the league.
I don't know about top 5 center of the league, but shout out to T. Severe. Despite him going to probably one of the most mediocre college football programs in all of the United States, he still emerged to be a professional, starting center in the league. So, shout out to Andre James overcoming the odds on that one. But, as far as him trying to be putting him in that top 5 rank or even a top 10 rank, I don't need for him to do that. I just need for him to be serviceable at this point.
Yeah.
And, he does struggle, in a 3-4 defenses and having a defensive tackle kind of lined up, head up on him because he's a kind of a smaller guy as far as offensive linemen go. But hopefully this year, he put on a little bit of bulk. The strength is there. And actually him reading and knowing defenses a little bit more. Got one more year under his belt, knows defenses a little bit more, continuity with the offense. You would hope that he would grow as a center having one more year. So to me, if I had to put a ranking on him, I would hope that he would play, just in the top 15 type of level. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I'm looking for. He doesn't need to be the best center in the league. He doesn't need to be top 5. Play top 15 ball. You got the pieces around you to be an elite or even a top 5 type of like we said earlier, Colton Miller and Jermaine Illuminor on the left side, right side, they could be top 10. Now, if they exceed that, then sky's the limit, right? And then a Parham and a Colton Miller being that 1-2 punch on the left side, that's enough to get things done. And all we need for Andre James is to be a top 15 serviceable type of center.
Yeah.
You know, and that to me that's enough. Now top 5, that's icing on the cake.
Yeah.
You know, that's if that happens. But for
that's
me,
where you have the best offensive line in the league at that point.
Exactly. So top 15 is what I'm looking for. Just being that cerebral, your most cerebral player on the offensive line has to be your center. That's the heart and soul of your offensive line. Most offensive linemen will tell you that, and that's what we need from him to be, just a leader on that team, and just be serviceable and be a top 15 type of guy.
Yeah. Shout out to everybody in the chat. We got 12 in the chat. We're coming up on an hour, guys. If you guys are not subscribed to my man BigMike Raider, which I pretty much everyone is, but if you guys are not, please go check him out on YouTube, BigMike Raider, and also check out PlanetRaiders.com. I know, BigMike, you're dropping articles. You and Wasted are like just killing it, dropping article after article.
Hey, you want to talk about 1-2 punch, man? That's the one right there, man.
For real.
And KaneTown, he's about to think he's getting things cooking as well. So, and we got a new member down the line too. So, hey, PlanetRaiders.com is going to be where you need to go to get all your content, everything you need as far as being that smart Raider fan and being the best Raider fan possible.
Yeah.
And getting that up-to-date news, man, for sure.
And I know definitely during the season, we're going to be probably breaking down some of the articles that you guys are dropping on Planet Raiders. I know, BigMike, I want to bring you back to talk about that Josh Jacobs one, because I was like reading it before the show in regards to, of course, the offensive line. But I'm like, man, you drop fire. I got to try to see if I could get Wasted on here too, because fire articles, man. PlanetRaiders.com, guys. If you guys have not checked it out already, please go support the brothers. We support Raider Nation. Everyone who supports the Raiders, we're going to support our brothers and sisters of Raider Nation. Quick, man, we're going to finish it off with one last question. Into the chat also, bro, we love your guys' comments. Rank this unit after 2023. Do you see this unit being – I would rank this unit – they can be top 10. They have the potential to be top 10. But I think they're going to squeeze – like maybe be 12 or 11. They're going to be serviceable, though. They're not going to be the worst. They're not going to be the best. But they're going to be good enough to where they're going to keep Jimmy Garoppolo up, right? They're not going to give up a lot of sacks. And I believe our rushing attack, it's not going to be like it was last season, 1,600 yards. I think 1,800 yards, like we're close to 1,900. I believe they're still going to be good enough to at least have us crack 1,000 yards as a team. Yep. So I would say 12. I'm ranking this offensive line at 12. What are you ranking this offensive line at after 2023, BigMike?
I agree. I would say around 12 is the standard, what you're looking for. Now, Warren Sharp, I don't know if you know who Warren Sharp is. He's the analytics guy. He's all over Twitter and stuff. He makes his rankings and stuff. He cooked Derek Carr on one of his threads a couple of months ago.
That's how I found out about him.
Yeah. He ranked the Raiders offensive linemen to be ranked as a whole 15th. So
I'm not mad at that, actually. I'm still not mad at that.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it either. But I think they could be a little bit better than 15th. I think they could be 12th, and that's on an average, but the ceiling is top 10. Yeah. I think they can be an 8, a number 7 or 8 best type of offensive line. And it really comes down to, what kind of production we're going to get from that right guard position. Mm-hmm. Is Dylan Parham going to, break out in his second year? We might see a Pro Bowl bid from a Colton Miller this year. And on the right side, Jermaine Illuminor, will we get that sustained, serviceable type of play from him where he wasn't giving many sacks? And if he also cleans up the penalties, you can see this offensive line squad as a whole being as high as maybe 8 or 7. Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm looking for as a ceiling at 7 or 8. average. If I had to pick status quo, 12 is pretty realistic.
I like that, man. Well, yeah, coming up on an hour, man. Guys, go check out planetraiders.com. I cannot stress that enough. Go subscribe to my man, Big Mike Raider. Thank you, Big Mike, for pulling up. I wish KaneTown would, wake up. Hopefully, maybe he is sleeping. But now I know
He's probably taking a nap.
Yeah, I mean, I know my man's working hard. I'm not going to beat him up that much. He deserves it, man. But yeah, also go check out KaneTown Raider, man. I'm not going to sleep on my man. Go check out KaneTown Raider on YouTube. And if you guys are not subscribed to Raiders Primos, please, guys, hit that subscribe button. We're 1 subscriber away from 350, and that's putting us 50 subscribers away from 400. So, guys, we're growing fast. Spread the link around. Spread it more. We are done with the offense of breakdown. We've done the quarterbacks. We've done running backs. We're done. Now we're going to talk about the defense in the coming weeks. We got the defensive line. We got the linebackers. We got the corners. And honestly, this is the unit that I'm really excited to talk about. Because this is the one side of the ball that has questions all over the board. And if you guys are like KaneTown and don't like Max Crosby slander, you guys might just want to unsubscribe right now.
Oh boy,
I'm kidding.
I'm looking forward to it, bro.
I love Max Crosby, but I need something in 2023 that we're going to talk about in the next video.
Absolutely.
But yes, you guys have a great night. Have a blessed Sunday. If you guys work tomorrow, man, get some sleep in, because I know I work tomorrow too, so I gotta get some sleep in. But yeah, shout out to Big Mike, PlanetRaiders.com. Go check it out. Subscribe to Big Mike, KaneTown, and Raiders Primos. Hit the like on the way out. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace.